Last time, Odysseus went down alive into the land of the dead and heard the blind prophet name the one thing that could destroy him. Tonight, he sails back up into the world of the living and straight into the narrowest, deadliest water in all the world. There are 3 horrors waiting on this road: a song that kills, a monster in a cliff, and a whirlpool that swallows whole ships. And at the end of it, a temptation that will decide whether any of his men live at all. Come close to the fire. This is the night the crew runs out of luck. First, the witch Circe had warned him of the Sirens, 2 creatures who sit in a flowered meadow on a rock in the sea and sing. And their song is the sweetest sound in all the world. They promise you everything. They promise to tell you all that will ever happen, all the secrets of the earth. And every sailor who has ever heard them has turned his ship toward that voice and driven it onto the rocks and died. The meadow around them is not green. It is white and heaped high with the rotting bones of the men who could not sail past. So Odysseus did a clever and a cruel thing. He took a great round of beeswax and cut it up and warmed it and stopped the ears of every man aboard, so none of them could hear a sound. But he wanted to hear it, he alone. So he had them lash him upright to the mast, hand and foot, with the rope biting into him, and he gave a hard order. "Whatever I do," he said, "however I scream, do not untie me. If I beg you to let me go, bind me tighter still." And then they rowed on, into the calm, toward the singing. And the song came over the water, and it was worse and sweeter than he had feared. They sang his own name. They sang of Troy, of everything he had suffered, and they promised to tell him everything still to come. And Odysseus lost his mind with wanting it. He strained against the ropes, and he screamed at his men to turn the ship, and his face begged them, "Come and untie me." But their ears were sealed, and they heard nothing. 2 of them only rose, and threw more rope around him, and pulled it tighter, and bent to the oars. And slowly, the killing song fell away behind them. But the worst of the road was still ahead. For now the sea narrowed into a strait, between 2 cliffs, so close together you could shoot an arrow across. And Circe had told him the truth of it. There was no safe way through, only a choice of deaths. On the one cliff, low down by the water, lurked Charybdis, a vast throat in the sea that 3 times a day sucked the whole ocean down into itself and 3 times spat it up again. Any ship caught over it when it drank would be dragged straight down to the bottom. Not even a god could save you from that mouth. And so, Circe had said, "You must not sail near Charybdis. You must hug the other cliff instead." But on that other cliff, in a dark cave too high to reach, lived Scylla, a monster with 12 dangling feet and 6 long necks, and on each neck a ghastly head, with 3 rows of teeth, packed thick with black death. She never shows her whole body. She just leans out of her cave, fishing the water below, and snatches dolphins and sharks and men out of every ship that dares to pass. No crew has ever rowed by her, and lost no one. Circe had given him one last, hard command. "Do not stop to fight Scylla," she said. "Do not waste time reaching for your weapons. She cannot be killed. If you halt to make war on her, she will only lean out a second time and take 6 more of your men. Row past as fast as you can and accept the price." And here Odysseus made his one great, human mistake. He could not bear to tell his crew. He knew that 6 of them were going to die in the next few minutes. And he said nothing and let them row on smiling. They came into the strait. On the left, Charybdis swallowed the sea with a roar, and the water boiled, and the men went pale and stared at the whirlpool, certain that was where death would come from. And while every eye was fixed on the whirlpool, Scylla struck from the cliff above. 6 heads came down, and plucked 6 men straight up out of the ship, screaming, reaching down for Odysseus, calling out his name in the air. And he could do nothing. He looked up and saw them lifted, kicking, into the mouth of the cave. It was, he said, the most pitiful thing his eyes ever saw in all his wanderings on the sea. Shaken, and short 6 men, they rowed clear of the cliffs. and ahead lay a green and lovely island. And Odysseus felt the cold hand of the prophecy close on him. For this was the island of the sun, and on it grazed the cattle of the sun god, sleek and immortal, that no man was ever to touch. Do not land, he begged them. Row past. But the men were exhausted and afraid of the dark, and they turned on him. And they swore a might. For a whole month the wind pinned them to that island, and their food ran out. They fished and hunted birds, going hungry, while all around them walked the fat, forbidden cattle. And one day, while Odysseus was away praying, and had fallen into sleep, his men broke. Better to drown, they said, than to slowly starve with meat before our eyes. And they took the best of the sun god's cattle, and killed them, and roasted them. And it was cursed meat. The flayed hides crawled along the ground. The meat on the spits lowed like living cattle. Odysseus woke to the smell of it, and knew, with a sinking heart, that they were all already dead men. When they finally sailed, the sun god had his revenge. Zeus sent one thunderbolt and shattered the ship, and every last one of those men was drowned. Every one. Only Odysseus, who had touched nothing, was left alive, clinging to the broken keel, alone on the open sea, exactly as the prophet had foretold. That is where we leave him tonight. Subscribe to the Dark Hearth and return to the fire.